Hello, my name is Nate Bojanowski, you can call me Boj, and we're going to be talking about the Risk of Rain 2 soundtrack. Christodoulou is the composer for this game. He uses a sound palette of electronic synthesizers, traditional drum sets, and electric guitar. But you can also see him use piano and brass. These synthesizers have a variety of different functions. They could either sear your ear off with ripping solos, provide percussive textures with repeating sequences, or lay out the atmosphere with a sci-fi ambience. For the most part, the music is not adaptive, besides a few instances. But before I get into that, I want to talk about why I chose this composer and how his music made this game so memorable for me. The main reason I chose this composer was because of his high quality production and his ability to keep the player engaged through consistently feeding them new content with interesting effects like panning, bit crushing, delay, and reverb. I'm going to be showing you a clip from the comedically named track, A Glacier Eventually Farts. Listen closely to his use of these effects I mentioned, and see how he creates cinematic chaos with this sound.
Here is violent.
The name of this track was taken from a Werner Herzog quote, who also happens to be the voice that you hear at the end of this clip. Although his voice isn't something that is heard in-game, it is a nice touch for those who listen to the soundtrack on vinyl. Okay, so back to the interactiveness and adaptability of the music to the gameplay. Like I said before, the music isn't really that adaptive to the gameplay, except for a few instances. The main interactability with the music has to do with boss battles. Once you activate the teleporter and spawn in a boss, the music changes and a red dome appears. The idea is to survive in the zone to charge the portal. One of the ways that the game lets you know that you need to be in the zone is that once you step out, a filter affects the music being played. There are two different types of tracks. There are the background tracks that play during exploration, and there are also the boss tracks. These are both dependent on the planet that you are exploring. One thing that I think Christodoulou does exceptionally well is capture the atmosphere for Risk of Rain. He uses ethereal synthesizers to create sci-fi ambience, and he uses arpeggiators to create critter-like percussion that imitates the creatures that crawl out of the ground. These tend to characterize the lulls in the music, which are great for exploration. So you're taking your time, looking around, opening up chests, then, out of nowhere, you get hit with this drum fill, and suddenly, you now feel as if you're a badass soaring through the air to a searing guitar solo, gunning down innocent critters. Christodoulou also captures the sci-fi vibe with his use of mixed meters and not having every element fall on the grid. Check out this next clip from the track Copin' is F***, which highlights his mixed meter while also showcasing his otherworldly synths. Like I mentioned earlier, these songs tend to be slow cookers with sudden, heavy-hitting elements. The main theme is no exception. Here is a simple transcription of that track. Christodoulou drew inspiration from a variety of genres, like prog rock, metal, and even classical music. One of my favorite tracks is called Con lentitud poderosa, which has a harmonic and melodic progression that sounds eerily similar to Chopin's Prelude in E minor. This comes as no surprise, as Chris went to a conservatory and even remade Chopin's Raindrop Prelude using the Risk of Rain sound palette. I'm going to show you a back-to-back comparison of Chopin's E minor Prelude and Chris's track which preludes the final boss fight against Mithrix, King of Nothing. So that was Chopin, and this is Chris. While this track continues in the background, I want to point your attention to the titles of each of these tracks. You might notice that, in some shape or form, these titles can be tied to the idea of the environment or rain. One of his most popular tracks is called The Rain Formerly Known as Purple, which uses motifs similar to that which Prince uses in his Purple Rain. You might also notice titles like Through a Cloud, Darkly, or The Raindrop That Fell to the Sky. But these are more obvious ones. Remember the glacier that eventually farts? Okay, I'll stop. Well, this likely refers to glacial degassing, which happens when glaciers melt and release methane and carbon dioxide into the air. There's also the previously mentioned Köppen as f***, which refers to a climate classification which divides the Earth into 5 different climate groups. Then there's the track that you're listening to right now, which is called Con lentitud poderosa, which refers to a poem by Jorge Luis Borges, and at the end of the poem he writes, and I'm going to translate to English, and it rained with powerful slowness. All in all, I feel as if Chris composed an extremely cohesive soundtrack with a palette that perfectly fits the theme of this game. I would have liked to see a little more interactability between the music and the gameplay, but the soundtrack is so intricate and well produced that I'm not complaining when there's a lull in the music while I fight a large wave of basic enemies, or if the music is popping off while I simply explore the map. So, drum roll please. I give this music a 10 out of 10. But I'm going to be bumping it down to a 9.5. Only because of the slight limitation between the music, the player, and the gameplay. Alright, so long!